Hey guys, welcome to the channel tonight. This is where we travel together through cold stories, silent journeys in the shadows of history. Tonight, I'll take you to a campaign unlike any other, the Winter Campaign, where armies faced not only their enemies but also the merciless winter devouring all life. There, the clash of swords and spears didn't echo like in the chronicles, but was buried beneath the snowstorm among groans, frozen breaths, and souls lost in the white abyss. Before we begin, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you won't miss the other dark journeys we'll explore together. And if you're listening right now, tell me, where are you? And what time is it where you are? Is it a cold night or a quiet morning? Either way, I want you to relax your shoulders, take a deep breath, and let go of every sound from the outside world. Because now, there's only you, the wind, and the story of a winter that never ends. The night before the march, you wake up in a canvas tent, the wind howling around the camp, dry and sharp like the cry of a beast across the frozen plains. Your breath turns to mist, floating briefly before vanishing into the air, so cold your lungs tighten with every inhale. In the dim light of an oil lamp nearly burnt out, you see snow creeping through the seams of the tent, falling onto the thin blanket, as if invisible hands were prying open the night itself to stuff winter inside. Everything is frighteningly quiet. In the distance, a horse breathes heavily, the faint clink of reins rings out, then fades. You know no one is sleeping. Where war meets the season's edge, sleep is a luxury. Tonight, everyone lies in darkness, waiting for orders, thinking about the one thing no one dares to say aloud, that tomorrow morning might be the last. You lift the flap of the tent and peer outside. Snow falls so thick that the campfire looks like a dying ember in a sea of white. The flame trembles weakly, like the breath of the soldiers huddled around it. You see a silhouette, an old soldier in a torn cloak trying to feed the fire with more wood, but the merciless wind snuffs it out the moment it sparks. A wisp of black smoke drifts away, blending into the dark. The smell of smoke, snow, damp horsehide, and rusty iron mix into a thick, suffocating air, as if the whole world is breathing fear. Inside your tent, the sword beside your pillow is cold as ice. You rest your hand on it not to check your weapon, but to make sure you can still feel. Your skin sticks to the frozen hilt for a few seconds, and when you pull away, a layer of skin tears off. Blood seeps out, but you don't bother to wipe it. The small pain makes you feel more awake, more real. In the corner, your comrade, the youngest in the unit, lies on his side, eyes wide open, staring into nothing. He's not asleep. Maybe he's thinking of home, or counting the gusts of wind tearing across the tent roof. You don't ask. Questions mean nothing now. Outside, the war goes on, indifferent to the cold, indifferent to the people fading away in the mist. The wind slams against the tent, making the fabric creak like breaking bones. You pull your cloak tighter around your neck. The cold is no longer something you feel on your skin. It's something that's seeped into your blood, threading through every breath, every thought. You think of tomorrow, of the order to march, of the road cutting through the white hills where there will be no markers left but death. The map the commander handed out is fogged and smeared, the paths reduced to fading ink lines. But no one cares anymore. Orders are orders. You wonder if anyone in the unit has ever made it through a winter like this and lived. Maybe someone has, but they never told the story. Survivors rarely speak because they know war has no victory, only those lucky enough not to die. Outside, the sky is black as ink, and the snow keeps falling. You tilt your head back, letting a few flakes land on your face. The icy sting burns your eyes. Each snowflake that falls feels like a white memory, erasing everything behind it. You hear someone whisper a prayer, voice trembling, then silence. No one dares to pray aloud. God, it seems, has fallen asleep in this winter too. When you turn back, the lamp in your tent flickers out. Darkness floods in, swallowing the small space whole. In that moment, you realize you've already begun the march, even while sitting still. No trumpet, no command, just the chill reaching your heart, and you know morning has come. You close your eyes, trying to sleep, but sleep doesn't come. Instead, there's the sound of memory gunfire, screams, the clash of metal all blending with the wind. You don't know when you drift off, only that in your dream, snow rises to your chest, and your entire unit trudges through an endless white sea. When you open your eyes, dawn hasn't broken yet. A faint silver glimmer seeps through the outside. You hear the signal whistle. Hands move quickly to pack gear, legs trembling as they slip into boots stiff as wood. Before stepping out, you turn to look back. The tent fabric is frozen solid, curved like a thin slab of stone. No warmth left, no scent of life. You sigh, then step out, where winter waits with its arms wide open, ready to swallow every soul that still breathes. Your breath turns into white smoke, each icy gust cutting into your throat, forcing you to hunch over and breathe slower, afraid that if you inhale too deeply, your lungs will shatter like ice. The cold doesn't just come from the air, it comes from within, as if your blood is freezing into small shards moving sluggishly through your body. You pull your cloak tighter around your neck, but the coarse fabric is stiff like wet paper, unable to hold any warmth. Your wrists tremble, skin cracked and bleeding at tiny tears. Every movement, no matter how small, spreads a sting like being sliced by a blade. Snow keeps falling, thick and heavy, each flake hitting your face like a cold needle. You feel your skin lose sensation, no longer knowing where your body ends and the wind begins. Your breath turns into white mist swirling around your mouth, fading, then forming again as if your soul is slowly drifting away. Far ahead, the sky is grey and heavy, as though it's about to collapse. There's no light, no colour, only a haze that stretches endlessly, covering everything in a layer of ash. You take a step forward, the snow sinks to your ankles, freezing through the soles of your boots. Every time your foot hits the ground, a sharp chill shoots up your spine. You think of the campfire from last night, those last sparks before the wind took them away, and you silently wish you could sit by it for just one more minute. But now, before you, is a long line of shadows, each person hunched over, walking slowly, silently. No one talks. No one sings. The silence weighs heavier than the snow. The wind blows sideways, slipping under your coat, slicing your flesh. Every time you lift your head, snowflakes hit your face, melt, and instantly freeze again into thin lines on your skin. You pull the scarf over your head, but the damp cloth quickly hardens into ice. Your neck goes numb, and soon your fingertips begin to lose feeling. You raise your hand, trying to move it, but it's stiff as wood. That same hand, the one that once held a sword, that once struck down in battles full of smoke, now trembles just because of the wind. The cold is no longer something you endure. It's something testing you, asking if you have the courage to keep going. You hear the horses exhale mist, their white breaths rising and vanishing, as if their souls are leaving their bodies. One horse slips and falls, its crash swallowed by the snow. The soldier leading it helps it up again, his eyes blank, not angry, not afraid, just tired. Tired like everyone else here. In the distance, the wooden wheels creak over ice, a dry, harsh sound that makes your teeth clench. You know it's the ammo wagon, or maybe the one carrying the dead from the night before. Out here, there's little difference between the two. The cold sharpens every sound. The scrape of armor echoes rhythmically, like metal groaning in pain. Each soldier moves like a machine, slow, weary, encased in frost. The wind lashes hard, striking your ears and neck, stinging like a whip. You bow your head, trying to keep your breathing steady. Every exhale is a trail of white smoke, a sign you're still alive, and you begin to fear. Not fear death, but the moment you no longer see that smoke. Ahead, the commander raises his hand. The column stops. The wind howls louder, snow pouring like a waterfall. You look up and see faint mist curling around the flagpole. The flag's colour has darkened, frozen stiff, too heavy for the wind to lift. Only a black scrap clings to the pole like frozen skin on a corpse. You can't tell if this is the beginning or the end of the march. Everything is buried in white. The cold blurs your memory. You can't recall how you got here, or how long it's been since you last saw sunlight. There's only the sound of wind, footsteps, ragged breathing, and the chill seeping into every heartbeat. With each beat, you feel your blood thicken. You lick your lips, tasting the iron of dried blood. When your fingers touch your mouth, the sting burns, and a drop of blood freezes right on your skin. You let out a faint laugh, not from joy, but from realizing something painfully true. Winter doesn't kill with the sword, it kills with time. You pull your collar once more, bow your head, and keep walking. The snow thickens, and with every step, you feel yourself sinking deeper into the frozen earth. In the distance, a trumpet sounds, lost in the storm. You can't make out the command, but you still move forward because there's no other choice. In this winter, you're not fighting for honor, nor for a king. You're fighting against the cold, against the breath that's trying to stop in your throat. And you know, this is the real battle, the one no one will ever glorify, where the only victory belongs to those who live long enough to tell that the first breath of winter was also its final warning. The commander gave the order to march before dawn. No one dared to protest. An order is an order, even when the road ahead is swallowed by a snowstorm. The signal horn sounded short, deep, carried away by the wind before it could echo back from the cliffs. The soldiers silently lined up, cloaks covered in night frost, each breath turning into a wisp of white smoke that rose and vanished. The torchlight flickered across hollow faces, pale and rigid like stone statues about to crack. You stood in the middle ranks, hand gripping the reins so tightly that the frozen metal clung to your skin. No one spoke a word, because words now would only make your teeth chatter and expose the fear everyone was trying to hide. The commander rode down the line, his cloak snapping in the wind like a torn flag. His face betrayed no emotion, his eyes fixed ahead so distant you couldn't tell whether he was thinking of victory or death. When he raised his hand, the column began to move. The first sound was the creak of wooden wheels grinding on ice, followed by the clatter of armor, then the hoarse neighing of horses. These sounds merged with the wind into a single metallic dirge that seemed endless. The snow fell so thick you couldn't see the man ahead. You bowed your head, pulling the hood down to block the wind, but the chill still slipped through every seam, slicing along your spine like a thin blade. Above, there were no stars, only a grey haze where the sky and earth had become one. You walked, hearing the snow crunch underfoot, each flake settling on your shoulders, your hood, slowly covering your body until you looked like a statue dusted in white salt. Behind you, a young soldier gasped for breath, his voice merging with the wind faint and flickering, like the last breath of a dying flame. You didn't turn back, afraid that if you met his eyes, you'd see your own fear reflected there. To your right, a supply cart lurched. One wheel stuck in a frozen rut, and the logistics soldiers used bare hands to dig it free, their skin sticking to the icy wood. They didn't cry out, only clenched their jaws and pulled. A horse slipped, fell, its leg broken. The commander gave the signal, "Do not stop." The soldier led the horse aside, drew his knife, and drove it into the animal's neck with one swift motion. Hot blood splashed onto the snow, steaming faintly before freezing into a dark stain. No one looked back. To march meant to move forward, even if it meant stepping over what you loved. The wind grew stronger. It hissed through helmets, through the slits of iron masks, making a wailing sound like the earth itself mourning. You heard that sound and felt your chest tighten. A soldier beside you stumbled, his knee hitting the snow, but no one helped. A fallen man stood up on his own or was left behind. Here, compassion was a luxury. The commander never turned around. He rode at the front, the only dark figure still upright in the white storm. From time to time he lifted his hand to signal a turn. No one asked why, because no one could see the way. Every step now was blind faith that the man in front was still alive to lead. The storm swelled, snow whipping across your face like rain made of needles. You bent low, shielding your eyes, but everything remained white, endless. The only sound left was your own breath, broken, hoarse. Each inhale felt like swallowing shards of glass. The smell of iron, sweat and horse breath mixed with the scent of fresh snow, cold and metallic, like the stench of death drawing near. For a moment, you saw the man ahead waver, then vanish into the storm. You tried to call out, but your throat wouldn't make a sound. Even your voice had frozen. You just kept walking, every step dragged down by the weight of armor. Beside your ear, someone muttered a prayer trembling, half plea, half farewell. Even faith shivered when it passed through this winter. The banner ahead sagged once, then lifted again, the wind twisting it weakly as if the army's very soul was swaying between life and death. When the pale light of dawn finally appeared, no one noticed. The sun was just a dim blur behind the clouds, casting not warmth, but cold. The snow kept falling, not harder, but heavier, sticking to shoulders. bending the long spears beneath its weight. A soldier sighed, his breath turned into a puff of white, fading as quickly as hope. You looked around, only grey shapes, heads bowed, moving in silence. The order had been carried out, but no one knew where they were going. On this road of white, everything, men, horses, weapons, blended into the snow, becoming a procession of wandering souls moving forward. And you, among them, suddenly realized that winter doesn't kill with frost. It kills with the endless repetition of footsteps that never stop, as human will wears down until it dissolves completely in the frozen breath of obedience. The wagon wheels screech on the ice, the metallic sound piercing the air like the cry of something dying. The horses neigh, their voices long and hoarse, fading as one wheel slips off the path. You tighten your grip on the reins, feeling as though you're holding a thread tied to fate, tense, cold, and ready to snap at any moment. Each time the horse jerks, the rope cuts deeper into your palms, leaving burning lines. The leather gloves have stiffened with frost, no longer flexible, like a layer of dried skin wrapped around your hands. The wind blows harder, lashing your face like iron whips, forcing you to squint just to see the road. The road ahead is no longer a road, just a pale ribbon blurred between snow and fog, where everything seems to dissolve. The marching horn has long since vanished. Now there's only the screech of wheels, the uneven rhythm of hooves, and the laboured breath of men. You lean low in the saddle, trying to guide the horse across the slick ice, but every step it takes ends in a slip, trembling as if its legs might snap. The dim light of dawn seeps through the clouds, not enough to warm, only enough to expose the blinding white of the world. You see wooden posts lining the road, or what remains of them, jutting from the snow like the ribs of a giant creature half buried beneath the earth. Each wheel turn carves deep grooves, only to have them swallowed instantly by fresh snow. The road seems to be erasing its own tracks, as if it doesn't want anyone to know you ever passed this way. Your horse stumbles once, and your heart lurches. You yank the reins, shouting hoarsely, but your voice is devoured by the wind. The horse's muzzle is crusted with ice, its breath spewing out in thick, smoky clouds. Its eyes are bloodshot, full of panic. You pat its neck, your hand numb, feeling the tremor beneath its wet, cold fur. It's afraid, and so are you. Every screech from the wheels behind feels like a warning. If the wagon overturns, if it slides into the frozen ravine to the right, it ends there. No arrows needed. You glance to the side, where another wagon wobbles on the ice. One of its wheels snaps. The driver tries to steady it, but the wooden frame twists, then collapses sideways. A scream pierces the air, brief, cut off. Snow bursts upward in a white cloud, then silence. No one stops. No one dares to stop. You can feel how war teaches people to walk past everything, even the life beside them. Ahead, the commander signals a change in direction, though you're not sure he can see the path or if he's just following instinct. The snow falls thicker, like a curtain, hiding everything, even the figures of men. You can only see the tail of the wagon before you, swaying in the white mist. Its wheels grind over thin ice, producing a deep, weary groan as if each turn were a sigh. You think of all the things buried beneath this snow-abandoned villages, once green fields, and perhaps the corpses of other armies who came before. Now, you are part of that same chain, a procession of fading silhouettes being erased from the world. A sharp gust blows through, so cold your chest tightens. You cough, your breath condensing into heavy smoke like poisoned air. Your throat burns, but you can't stop to breathe deeply. To your left, the road begins to slope downward. The wheels skid, deeper and louder, the shrill screech tightening your heart. You pull hard on the reins, your whole body taut, as if trying to keep a small flame alive in a blizzard. The horse collapses briefly, then pushes itself up, its breath ragged, its muzzle coated in ice where snow and snot have frozen together. Your eyes sting from wind, or maybe tears. Far ahead, you see the commander's dark shape pause atop a ridge, raising his hand to signal a halt. The convoy slows, wagon by wagon, creaking in weary unison. You loosen your grip. The reins slip from your red, bruised fingers. Your hands burn, stiff and raw, as if caught between blocks of ice. You look down at your palms, small red marks, uncertain if they're blood or bruises. The horse exhales clouds of vapor, its legs trembling, head drooping in exhaustion. You run your hand down its neck, feeling bone cold, rigid, metallic. In the distance, a young soldier stares into the endless white ahead, his face devoid of expression. The cold has stolen every emotion. Only the wind and the cracking of wheels echo faintly, like the slow heartbeat of a dying world. You lift your head, looking forward. The road still stretches on, the ice still thick, and the snow still falling. In that moment, you understand the reins you hold aren't just tied to the horse's neck, but to your own life, and to every soul trudging through this winter. Letting go would mean disappearing into the white, but you don't let go. You pull the reins tighter, exhale a thin line of mist, and move on each step, each screeching wheel a whisper from fate, dragging all of you toward the same end. The army stretched endlessly, thousands of heavy footsteps pressing into the fresh snow, leaving behind red stains where soldiers had fallen. Each step seemed to sink the weight of a soul into the earth, slow, heavy, and so silent you could hear your own heartbeat inside your chest. Beneath the thick snow, the ground was soft and slick. Every footfall made a dry thud, then was swallowed by the wind. The column moved forward like a silver serpent, silently slithering across the frozen plain, its tail already lost in the mist, its head heading toward nowhere. Each man moved like a shadow face is gone. Only the bent shapes remained, spears stabbing into the ground for balance, cloaks drenched in frost turning pale as bone. You walked among them, your hood covering most of your sight, seeing only the shoulders of the man ahead, his back rising and falling with each breath, exhaling a faint white mist, pale like the breath of the dead. From time to time, someone fell, no scream, just a collapse to their knees, then stillness. The man behind stepped over him and kept moving. Perhaps they were afraid that if they stopped, they wouldn't rise again. Step by step, footprints merged with dark streaks of blood on the snow. That red quickly vanished beneath new snow, as if winter refused to let anyone leave a trace. Above, crows circled, their calls scattered and cold as they mixed with the wind. You looked up, their black wings tilted and shrank into the storm. They waited, because they knew this army would soon leave them a feast. Beside you, your companion, a young soldier, had lips turned blue, eyes sunken. He gripped his spear tightly, though his fingers were numb and lifeless. Each time the wind blew, snowflakes clung to his lashes, melting and freezing again, forming a thin crust of frost. He turned to you and rasped, "How much farther?" You didn't answer, only shook your head slightly. In this winter, how much farther meant nothing. Whether 1 mile or 10, it was all the same, endless. Ahead, a short blast from the horn signaled the army to change direction. The bent figures shifted, the long line winding through the valley. The sky was a blur, fog covering the distant hills. The snow never stopped flakes, big as hands fell onto soldiers' shoulders, melting, soaking through the fabric, then freezing again into ice. A soldier at the front slipped, crashing into the man ahead, making the whole row stumble. The clang of armor rang out, metal striking metal, sounding like a death knell beneath the storm. You tried to steady yourself, but your legs sank deep, your boots buried halfway in snow. You felt nothing in your feet anymore, just heaviness and sting, as though they no longer belonged to your body. You looked down, the tip of your boot stained red. You couldn't tell whose blood it was. Maybe the man ahead's, maybe your own. The cold numbed even the memory of pain. Far ahead, a few figures collapsed. There were no medics, no rescue. They simply curled into the snow and slowly disappeared beneath it. An old soldier in front of you suddenly stopped, turned his head to look around. His eyes were cloudy, like frozen water. He looked at those beside him, then lowered his head and kept walking. That small act weighed on you strangely, as if he had just confirmed that there was no one left to trust but his own feet. The army kept moving, step by step, breath by breath. Some began to murmur prayers, voices trembling and broken. Others bowed their heads and walked, no words, no thoughts. In the heart of this blizzard, words meant nothing. The wind devoured everything. You looked ahead, the unit's flag fluttered faintly, but the fabric was frozen solid, no longer able to fly. It stood like a thin slab of stone, bound to the pole by ice. The emblem on it, a golden lion, was now just a blurred black stain in the fog, a symbol of glory, buried in white death. Your throat burned dry, each swallow a stab of pain. Your tongue was cracked, your lips bled. You licked them, tasting the metallic salt mingling with the cold scent of snow, a smell like frozen steel. Your vision blurred. Everything around you seemed to spin slowly, the figures ahead fading into mist. You blinked hard, trying to pull yourself back to reality. The sound of hooves rose from behind, steady but heavy. A wagon full of ammunition rolled past, its wheels crushing through red snow, leaving a smeared trail. The scent of gunpowder mixed with blood, a suffocating blend. For a moment, you felt as though you were walking through a dream with no end, where everyone marched forever in silence, leaving behind faint trails of blood that the wind would soon erase. And then the wind blew again, wiping everything clean. You realized that in this winter, no one would be remembered. Every trace would be buried, every footprint erased. And no matter how long the army stretched, in the end, all that would remain was a single, absolute color, the white of snow, of cold, and of forgetting. You hear a moan in the wind. It's unclear whether it's someone wounded or just the breath of those who died yesterday. The sound drifts through the vast white emptiness, sometimes near, sometimes far, as if the wind is carrying someone's soul over your head before dropping it somewhere else. You stop walking, lift your head, and listen. There's nothing but the steady fall of snow, the faint clinking of armor, and that same distant moan again, long, weak, fading into the air. The hair on your neck rises, not from cold, but from the feeling that something is watching. You glance around. The column still moves slowly forward, heads down, no one stopping. Maybe they can't hear it, or worse, they're too used to the sounds of the dying. You bite your lip and force yourself to keep walking. But that sound keeps echoing in your mind. A reminder that this road is paved not just with snow, but with bodies. Each gust of wind feels like it carries the last breaths of souls not yet gone. Maybe they were soldiers from your side, maybe from the enemy, but in this winter, there are no sides anymore. Death speaks a single language. Far ahead, a shadow collapses. You squint through the fog and see a soldier kneeling in the snow, clutching his stomach, his body trembling. You're about to run to him, but the commander's voice cuts through the wind. Stop, and you die. The words are cold as steel, slicing through every thought. You freeze, watching as the man slowly sinks, as if pulled down by the weight of winter itself. He lies still, silent. Only the wind moves, lifting a few strands of hair caught in his hood before burying him in snow. Someone nearby bows their head. No one makes the sign of the cross. No one speaks a farewell. War has stripped away even the right to compassion. You turn away, but your ears still hear the moaning, or maybe it's an illusion. Maybe it's just the crunch of snow underfoot, the wind passing through cracks in the rocks, or the muffled cries buried in the ice. This winter, every sound has a soul. You remember last night, inside the tent. Someone had moaned like that too, the hoarse sound of fever, breath weakening until it stopped. They buried him just behind the camp, shallow, because the ground was frozen solid. By morning, the grave was gone, levelled and buried in snow. Only a sword stuck in the ground at an angle marked the spot. Perhaps tonight, when the wind passes over that place, the same sound will rise and drift here, looking for someone to listen. You swallow hard. The cold slices through your throat, sharp and burning. In the ranks, some soldiers begin to cough dry, heavy coughs, mixing with sighs, forming a chorus of exhaustion. Behind you, a horse exhales a cloud of white mist, its head lowered, eyes dull as frosted glass. It hears the moan too, maybe, because it suddenly stops, refusing to move. The driver cracks the whip, the sound slicing the air, but the animal only strains, unmoving. A streak of blood smears across the ice, bright red against the perfect white. You turn away, but the image burns into your mind. The moan comes again, closer now, clearer, as if someone is right beside your ear, whispering through the wind. Go back, or keep going. You can't tell. The voice warps, stretches, torn apart by the gusts into fragments of meaningless sound. You shiver. Your step falters, sliding slightly on the ice. A hand grabs your shoulder, your comrade beside you, his eyes hollow, silent, only signaling for you to steady yourself. That small gesture snaps you back. You realize you nearly fell. You nod, grateful, But he's already turned away, melting back into the line ahead. The moan is no longer distinct now, it's become part of the wind, rising and falling like the breath of the earth itself. Each time you try to focus, it fades, as if it was never there. But you know it was real, because in this suffocating silence, nothing is more terrifying than hearing what no one else hears. You try to think of something else, fire, home, the smell of bread, the warmth of light, but those memories vanish as quickly as a candle in the storm. Before your eyes, only snow remains. On your lips, only the taste of iron. And in your ears, that moan still lingers, weaving a wordless melody music for the souls wandering between life and death. You don't know who was the first to fall in this campaign, nor how far you still have to go. But when the last gust of wind sweeps past, carrying one final faint moan, you understand winter needs no guns, no swords. It only needs one breath, weak, broken, then gone. And with that, another life quietly leaves this world, as silent as the sound you just heard. The snow is so thick it swallows direction. On the map, there are only names left. This village, that fortress. But in reality there is only white, and more white, stretching all the way to the horizon. You stare at the map in your hands, the ink stains bleeding from dampness, the borderlines blurred like old memories. Where once there was a blue river, now lies only a grey ribbon of ice. Where there were villages, now nothing remains but mounds of snow as tall as a man. With every step, you bow your head to fight the wind. The cold stings your eyes, tears freezing the moment they fall. You no longer know where north is. The sun hides behind the fog, leaving only a pale metallic light that offers no warmth, no shadows. The army moves in silence, row after row, no one daring to stray from formation. You hear the commander bark softly, ordering everyone to keep distance by the shadow of the man ahead. But in this sea of snow, even shadows vanish within a few steps. The wind howls, lifting the snow beneath your feet, erasing your tracks in seconds. You take 10 steps, look back, and it's as if no one ever walked there. You shiver not from the cold, but from the feeling of being swallowed whole, as if the world itself is erasing all proof that humans ever existed. A soldier beside you lifts his head, squinting toward the horizon, then murmurs that he sees the fortress tower. But when you follow his gaze, there's nothing, only whirling white winds, with a few black shapes born of exhausted eyes. Doubt begins to spread in others, and in yourself. Some swear they saw a torchlight, others claim they heard bells. But silence falls again, because no one is sure if they're still sane. You press your hand to your forehead, trying to remember the route. According to the map, you should turn northwest after the frozen hills. But where are the hills? Everything is flat, as if the world has been crushed into one giant white sheet. The wind seeps down your collar, cold cutting straight to your heart. You shudder, pulling your cloak tight, but the warmth is stolen instantly. A thin layer of ice begins to form on the fabric, making each movement heavier. Every time you lift your leg, the snow clings like hands, pulling you down. Sometimes you stop, take a deep breath, trying to hear anything beyond the wind. But nothing. No birds, no water, no life. Only your own breath, heavy, hoarse, broken like an old machine about to stop working. The commander halts his horse, raises his hand. The column stops with him, ranks standing still like statues. He looks around, then down at the map, his eyes dark, saying nothing. You know he's not sure where they are either. A young officer approaches, pointing in one direction, saying something into the wind, but his words are carried away. The commander nods and signals to move on. The army walks again, but this time the rhythm is gone. Some march slower, some drift to the side. Each one seems to follow a different map inside their head. And slowly, the line begins to spread, dissolving into the snow and fog. You try to follow the man ahead, but the distance widens. When you turn, the man behind you is gone. Panic creeps into your chest. You shout, but the wind devours your voice. Around you, only snow, no line between earth and sky. In that moment, you feel as though you've fallen into a space without direction, without gravity, only the sound of your heartbeat and your breath, torn apart by the wind. You lower your head and keep walking, hoping to find someone's footprints, but the wind has erased them all. Every step you take disappears behind you, as if you're walking through a dream where everything fades the instant you touch it. Time becomes meaningless. You don't know how long you've been walking, only that the light dims, then darkens. The sky turns slate purple, and the wind grows colder. You know night is coming. But in this winter, day and night are the same. A soldier far ahead calls out, his voice caught in the wind. You can't make out the words, only see him pointing forward. There a faint black shape in the distance, maybe trees, maybe a wall, maybe a mountain's shadow. The army bunches closer, weary legs dragging through the deep snow, eyes flickering with a spark of hope. But as you near it, the black shape dissolves, only the shadow of clouds reflected on the white ground. Hope vanishes as fast as it came. Someone laughs, a dry, broken laugh that cracks into a cough. You look around. A few men have collapsed, curling into their cloaks, trying to sleep, or simply giving up. You know they won't rise again. Winter will take them, as it takes all who lose their way. You tighten your belt, forcing yourself to move. In the distance, a faint horn sounds a call from somewhere far away. You don't know where it comes from, or if you even heard it at all. But still, you walk toward it. In this white world, even the smallest sound is enough to keep a person alive. You keep walking until the wind rises again, swallowing the horn, and all returns to absolute silence. In that moment, you understand. Winter doesn't just swallow direction, it swallows faith. And when that happens, a man no longer needs to die because he has already faded into its endless white. The wind slams into your face, so cold it feels like you're being slapped over and over again. It doesn't just claw at your skin, it feels like it's trying to pierce through your skull, pounding inside your head, shattering every thought into shards of ice. Every breath you take burns, like inhaling broken glass. Your eyelashes freeze, and each time you blink, they stick together, sealed shut by a thin crust of ice. You have to pry them apart with trembling fingers, but your hands are so cold you can't feel them anymore. Your index finger is purple, stiff as wood. Everything around you is nothing but white, no sky, no ground, only violent gusts tearing through the world like a starving beast roaring at the air. You bow your head low, trying to hold your breath, but the air is so cold your lungs seize up in pain. Each inhale feels like being stabbed by 100 icy needles in the throat. The wind howls, whipping your cloak, the sound harsh and sharp like the endless cracking of an invisible whip. You have no idea how far you've gone. Your legs feel weighted with lead. Every step is torture, the slick snow forcing you to dig deeper, each muscle straining against the cold that wants to freeze your blood. The sweat that seeps down your neck turns to ice in seconds. You feel your body turning into a walking stone, hard, heavy, and almost soulless. A soldier in front of you collapses face first into the snow. The sound of his body hitting the ground is dry and dull, but the wind swallows it immediately. Two others grab his arms, trying to lift him, but their hands have no strength left. He falls again, half buried in the snow. No one stops anymore. No one has the breath to call his name. You glance at him as you pass his face, half covered in frost, mouth slightly open as if gasping, but nothing comes out. The wind keeps screaming, devouring even the sound of death. You hunch lower, cloak flapping wildly like torn wings. Your face burns, the skin feeling flayed. You can't tell if it's still whole or cracking apart. Only the salty taste of blood on your lips tells you you're still alive. Every time you try to open your eyes, the wind lashes at them, forcing tears that instantly freeze at the corners. You can't cry, only let the ice stream from your eyes in place of tears. Somewhere in the storm, the commander's voice shouts, broken and faint. You catch a few words, "Hold the line, don't stop," before the wind swallows them too. You know he's still at the front, a dark shape defying the gale, but the distance feels infinite now. Perhaps even he can no longer see the way. The wind has blinded everything. You lift your hand to shield your face, forcing your eyes open. Your nails crack and bleed against the ice, but the pain wakes you. Pain is the only proof you're still alive. Without it, you'd be no different from the snow-covered corpses lying still and vanishing. Somewhere ahead, a sharp crack, something breaking. You look up to see the flagpole snap in two, the banner torn away by the storm. Shreds of fabric whirl through the air, spinning like burning birds. The flag bearer drops to his knees, clutching the broken pole. You can't hear what he says, but you know he's whispering maybe a prayer, maybe a curse. Here, in this storm, every word becomes a breath, and every breath vanishes. The wind slaps your face again, harder than before. The sting makes your ears ring, the whistling cuts like 1,000 knives. You touch your cheek numb, unsure if the skin is still intact. Your gloves are wet, freezing, stuck to your flesh. It feels like your face is being peeled away piece by piece. Beside you, a young soldier coughs violently, dark blood sprays out, freezing into black drops before hitting the ground. He collapses, clutching his chest, trying to breathe. But the air is too cold, his lungs shatter inside him. The wind sweeps through, tossing his snow-crusted hair before burying him completely in minutes. You look, but you don't stop. No one stops. If you do, you'll be buried too. Death here makes no sound, no call. It's just a moment of stillness before vanishing. You turn your face aside, trying to escape the wind, but it comes from everywhere. The wind has its own soul, it laughs, it howls, it speaks with the voices of thousands of lost spirits trapped in the snow. Each time it passes, you can hear strange echoes, whispers, breaths, faint laughter blending into a haunting, endless song. You want to scream to drown it out, but your mouth is frozen, your throat sealed, no sound escapes. You just keep walking. The wind strikes your back, then your face, slapping again and again, relentless, merciless. It feels like it's trying to erase you, your skin, your flesh, your memories until only a white shadow remains, wandering through the storm. And you understand winter doesn't need to kill anyone. It only needs to blow long enough to make everyone part of itself. The shapes of men fade ahead, melting into the blizzard. You feel yourself dissolving too, each breath torn away by the wind. But even then, you force your eyes open. Though your lashes are frozen shut, though your vision is a blur, you still want to see something, anything other than white. A sign, a silhouette, a light. But there's nothing. Only wind, wind, and more wind, like invisible hands striking your face again and again, until you can no longer tell whether you're alive or just the last breath being carried away by the storm. The food is running out. The hard bread has turned to stone, too tough to bite. When you try to break it, the sound is dry, sharp, like the crack of an old bone. The crumbs fall, instantly buried beneath the snow, vanishing as if winter itself is eating with you. The water in the leather pouch has frozen solid, cold as rock. To get a single drop, men press their tongues against the ice melting at the rim. Every sip of liquor is now more precious than gold. No one drinks for pleasure, but because it's the only thing that still burns in their throats, reminding them there's fire left inside. You open your ration bag. Only a small piece of brown bread remains, once meant to be shared among 3. It smells faintly burnt, slightly mouldy, but you don't hesitate. Your stomach is empty, gnawing at itself. You chew slowly. The bread crumbles like gravel, soaking up every trace of moisture from your mouth. Your throat is so dry you have to force each swallow, feeling it scrape down like swallowing stones. A soldier sitting nearby watches you, his eyes dull. You can't tell if it's hunger or despair. He has a piece of bread too, but he only looks at it, doesn't eat. When you ask why, he whispers, "I want to save it for morning." You say nothing. Morning. No one knows who will still be alive to see it. In the distance, the supply soldiers gather the last food sacks. Each man receives half a portion, sometimes less. The wind whips through, scattering the empty fabric bags. All that's left are dustings of flour on the snow, and some desperate men bend down to lick it. One is caught, the commander sees, but says nothing, only turns away. At this stage, discipline means nothing. Only survival and death remain. You feel the hunger rising. It's not the kind you've known before, it's something primal, twisting every muscle, pushing your mind toward thoughts you don't dare to finish. When you look at your comrades huddled by the fire, you don't just see men, you see shadows of warmth, something your instincts want to steal. You're afraid of yourself. Night falls. The makeshift camp is built from torn cloth and broken planks. They burn anything that will catch old saddles, cartwood, scraps of leather. The fire is small, the smoke thick and black, but everyone crowds close. The air is heavy with the stench of burning hide, spilled liquor, and human breath. Someone pulls out the last flask of wine, pouring it drop by drop. They pass it around, each taking a tiny sip as if sharing blood. When it touches your lips, your tongue stings, then warms briefly, fragilely. The warmth vanishes as fast as a breath, leaving behind a hollowness even colder than before. Someone laughs a dry, broken laugh. "If we die here," he says, "at least we won't be hungry anymore." No one replies. The man beside him lowers his head, covering his face with his hands. You stare into the fire, its glow fading, turning pale yellow. The shadows of everyone stretch across the snow, warped, trembling. One man slumps over, doesn't move again. No one checks. They just watch, waiting for his last breath to fade into the air. Another quietly pulls the dead man's gloves off. His hands were frozen, but the gloves are still dry. No one speaks. In war, everything becomes property, even life, even death. You turn away, biting your lip until blood comes, forcing yourself to stay awake. Images of the early days flash through your mind. Laughter, singing, meat roasting over open flames. Now there's only snow, hunger, and silence. Outside the camp, the wind howls through the wooden stakes, shrieking like a ghostly flute, the song of wandering souls. You wonder if they come back, the ones who fell along the road. Maybe they're standing out there now, watching, waiting to see who's next. You shiver, pulling your cloak tighter. The hunger clouds your mind. You think you hear your mother's voice, the clink of a spoon on a metal bowl, the smell of fresh bread in the air. You open your eyes, nothing, only snow and the frozen sound of your own breath. Across the fire, the young soldier from earlier chews his last piece of bread. He eats slowly, painfully slowly, as if trying to hold on to the feeling as long as possible. Then he looks up at you and smiles weakly. "I couldn't wait till morning," he says. You nod. You don't blame him. Morning will be no different from tonight. Here, time has stopped frozen along with the food, the water, and the dying breath of everyone still alive. You lower your head, gripping the handle of your knife not to fight, but to remind yourself you're still here. Outside, the wind screams again, carrying the bitter scent of burnt firewood. In the darkness, the soldiers sit motionless, eyes sunken, lips moving faintly, maybe in prayer, maybe just counting their breaths. And you understand that in the winter campaign, the most terrifying enemy isn't the opposing army. It's hunger, gnawing at every soul, piece by piece, until nothing remains but silence and snow. A soldier in front falls. There's no scream, only a bend of the knees and silence. He collapses as if his body has finally stopped fighting its own weight. The snow receives him softly, like a blanket, slowly covering his shoulders, his head, burying everything. No one stops, because if you stop, you'll be next. The army keeps moving, each heavy step dragging its own death along. Every footprint sinks, then vanishes as wind and snow swallow it whole. The man ahead disappears, the man behind steps forward. No one speaks. No one dares to look back. You feel your body drained, every breath escaping like the smoke of a candle about to die. The cold is no longer something your skin feels, it's inside you now, seeping into your blood, gripping your muscles, squeezing your slowing heart. Ahead, the commander still rides, posture straight as a statue. He doesn't turn back, can't, or won't. Maybe he's afraid that if he does, he'll see he's leading a column of ghosts. A strong gust hits, forcing you to your knees. For a moment, your head spins. Snow whirls madly, cutting your face like sand mixed with blades. You push to stand, your legs stiff as timber. The world spins white, mixing with the black inside your mind, as if reality itself is melting. You bite your teeth together, muttering an old prayer whose meaning you've long forgotten. Just don't fall. Don't fall. Ahead, another soldier slips. He stumbles, plants his spear, but his knees give way, and he falls, shoulder first into the snow. No cry, only a dull thud, then stillness. The army marches on. A few glance at him, eyes hollow. You know they're not heartless, they just no longer have the strength to care. In this winter, even compassion has frozen. A black crow suddenly dives down, landing on the fallen man, tilting its head to study him. Its eyes gleam bright against the white, like two tiny embers. You shiver, then lower your head and keep walking. The wind howls, tugging at the dead man's cloak until it flaps wildly, then buries it in snow. Within minutes, he's gone, as if he never existed. You breathe hard, your breath turning to white mist, vanishing in the air. Your throat burns, your lungs ache. A soldier beside you mutters, "We're not going to make it." His voice is hoarse, sliced by ice. You don't answer. Speaking now would only waste breath. The wind rises again, carrying away even the words left unsaid. The path grows steeper, ice beneath your feet, boots slipping, men falling and crawling back up. You no longer know where you're going. The map lost its meaning long ago. There's only the order: move forward. Don't ask where, just move. Each step is a challenge, winter's way of testing human will. Hunger fogs your head, your eyes blur. You see a large figure ahead, tall, strong, leading the line. Each step he takes, snow bursts around his legs like he's carving the path for everyone. But when you try to quicken your pace to see his face, he's gone, nothing there, only a mirage born from the fever of cold. You let out a short laugh, dry, soundless. The wind answers with a long wail, carrying your laughter away. Far ahead, another soldier falls. This time you see it clearly. He stumbles, catches himself, then slides down, still. His whole body lies motionless in the snow, eyes wide, staring at the sky. No one comes to help. Someone steps on his arm without noticing. Another footprint, another smear of red. The army moves on, stretching like a thin red thread slowly torn apart by the wind. You keep walking, feeling like you're drifting through a dream. The world now holds only three things: wind, snow, and death. Everything else is gone. The sound of hooves weakens. The commander's horse exhales smoke, lowers its head, but he forces it forward. You can't tell what he's made of anymore. To you, he no longer looks human. Maybe he's just a spirit riding his own corpse. The farther you go, the louder your heartbeat thuds in your ears, slow, heavy, like a distant drum signaling the end. You feel your legs trembling, your knees ready to break. You want to stop, just for a moment to breathe, to close your eyes. But then you remember the first soldier who fell, the way he lay still, no sound, no resistance. And you know if you stop, you'll become him. Soon, just a few minutes, winter will take care of the rest. You grit your teeth and force yourself to keep walking. Each step is a vow against the snow. Each breath, a small battle against the death creeping into your lungs. Around you, the ranks thin out. The distance between men widens. From afar, you must look like small black dots crawling across an endless white sea. And one day, when the wind blows hard enough, even those dots will vanish, leaving behind a perfect world of silence, where no one falls anymore, because there's no one left to fall. The sky is drowned in silver grey. You can't tell if it's morning or night. That dim light isn't warm, doesn't spread, it's just a haze, drifting, covering everything. The sun has been swallowed by snow, and time has lost its meaning. You don't know how long you've been walking, when morning began, or where the night ended. This world no longer divides itself between day and night. There's only one colour left, pale and cold. The shadows moving through that grey look no different from wandering souls. The wind isn't strong but relentless, hissing in steady waves like the breath of some sleeping beast beneath the ground. You lift your head and see only a sky thick and heavy, like molten lead. No bird flies across, no sound echoes back. The world seems drained of all life, leaving behind a hollow space where every step forward feels like an act of defiance against despair. Your eyes sting from the cold mist. Each blink seals your lashes together with ice. You've stopped counting time, there's nothing left to count. Day and night differ only in shades of grey. Sometimes someone whispers, "What time is it?" But no one answers. The clocks have stopped, their hands frozen, and the sun no longer exists as a measure. You glance at the soldier beside you, his face stiff, lips purple, eyes empty, staring forward. No one knows what they're looking at, or if they're simply following out of habit. The whole column keeps moving, as if only the memory of movement remains to drive bodies long emptied of strength. To the left, the snowbanks rise higher, blocking the view. In the distance, broken trees bow and twist like shattered bones. You try to remember what a real sunrise looked like. Golden warmth, the sound of birds, Or maybe that's just a false memory your mind made up, so it wouldn't forget that the world once had colours beyond white and grey. Snow keeps falling, not hard, but endlessly. Each flake lands on your cheek, melts, then freezes again instantly. The wind carries away the moisture, leaving white streaks on your skin. You touch your face, it feels like stone. A soldier ahead stops, looks around, then raises his head toward the sky. He stands there for a long time, silent, motionless. After a while, you hear his hoarse voice. "I don't know what day I'm living in anymore." No one responds, but his words linger inside you. Yes, when time disappears, people begin to dissolve too. You don't know what day it is, what month, what year. You only know you're still walking, and the snow still falls. Each soldier is like the hand of an old clock, moving without purpose across a blank face. Ahead, the commander raises his hand to rest. The column halts. The sound of heavy breathing mixes with the wind. You sit down. The cold seeps through the fabric, biting into your skin. You look at your hands, nails purple, skin cracked, blood frozen into a thin crust of ice. You lift your hand to shield your eyes from the dim silver light, but it doesn't help. That light doesn't illuminate, it just exists, like the gaze of the dead still watching the living. Another soldier sits beside you, head bowed, his voice barely a whisper. Maybe the sun is dead. You don't know how to respond. The words sound real and terrifying. Maybe it's true. The sun no longer appears. Only its ghost remains faint, cold, formless, without warmth. You lift your head again, trying to find its outline among the clouds and snow, but see only a dull patch of brightness, like the eye of a dead fish floating on water. The world has lost its pulse. Death here doesn't come through blood or bullets, but through silence stretched too long. You realize humanity needs darkness, to know when light exists, needs night, to remind itself it's alive within a cycle. But here, everything is one endless plane, no beginning, no end. Your eyes grow heavy, sleep creeping in like temptation. You know if you close them too long, you'll never open them again. Yet your eyelids droop, your head dips forward. In that haze between waking and dreaming, you see a flicker of red light far away, small as a candle. You want to shout, but your throat locks. Maybe it's a mirage, maybe it's salvation. You stand up, trembling, and point toward it, but when the others look, it's gone. Only snow, still white, still falling. Someone laughs dryly. "You're dreaming," they say. You sit down again, quietly. Dreaming, maybe they're right. In a world without day or night, dreams and reality are the same, both drifting shades of grey inside a lost mind. You lower your head, clench your hands. Your nails dig into your skin pain, sharp and real. That small pain wakes you. You exhale, your breath fogging the air. In the distance, the grey sky thickens, heavy as if about to collapse. You know another blizzard is coming. This time, no one will survive if they're still outside. But the army hasn't found shelter. The commander lowers his hand, march on. You stand, legs numb, and step forward, merging with the line. Above you, the sky stays silent, still drowned in silver grey. And you realize here, everything can vanish, men, hope, even time itself. All that remains are snow, wind, and the invisible passing of something that no longer cares to be called time. There is no day, no night, only an endless march through a world the sun has forgotten. Night falls, and a temporary camp rises. There's no more wood to burn, only damp straw and human breath for warmth. Trembling hands gather around the dying embers, the faint red glow reflected in sunken eyes, weary to the point of despair. The wind still howls outside, cutting through every gap in the canvas, every seam in the armor, carrying the faint moan of winter like the song of an ancient soul. You sit close to the coals, but the heat can't pierce the cold buried in your bones. The flame shrinks, weakens, then flares up briefly when someone throws in a handful of dry straw, scavenged from an abandoned field miles away. The burnt straw stings your nose, the smoke sharp, making you cough. But no one moves away. Everyone inches closer, as if stepping back might let the flame die, and with it, the last trace of life in this endless night. There is no laughter, no stories shared around the fire. Only wind and ragged breathing, blending together into a voiceless prayer. You look around, hollow faces, empty eyes, cracked lips. A few huddle, resting their heads on their knees, chasing short, broken sleep. The rest sit still, afraid that if they close their eyes, they won't open them again. You stretch your hands toward the coals, trying to feel their heat, but your fingers are purple, nearly numb. You rub your palms together, the sound of cracked skin like paper tearing. In the corner, a soldier picks ice off his beard, the tiny shards falling and shattering on the ground. He lets out a dry chuckle, voice hoarse. I used to think fire could fight winter. Now I'm not so sure. No one answers. Here, no one argues. No one comforts. Every word falls into emptiness. Outside, the wind wails, pressing against the tent, making the fabric heave and groan like the laboured breath of a wounded beast. You hear the horses moaning softly. They stand outside, tails wrapped tight, shaking their heads, enduring the cold. Your eyes glance out, their breath rises like smoke from a demon's mouth, drifting, fading. You know by morning, some will be dead. The night grows longer. The sky outside is pitch black, no stars, only a pale blur where the moon has been swallowed by clouds and snow. Inside, the commander sits still, back against a wooden post, eyes half closed. He isn't sleeping, just resting, like a machine paused to conserve fuel. Even his breathing sounds like marching cold, heavy, but steady. You look at him, then at the men around you, and wonder where you stand in this long chain between life and death. The wind lashes again, making the flame flicker, the coals flare, then die in parts. Someone rushes to fan it with a scrap of cloth, smoke rising thick, forcing everyone to cough. The smell of smoke mixes with sweat, horsehide, and dried blood, the scent of war and despair. A young soldier pulls out a letter from home, but it's soaked, the ink all blurred. He can't read it anymore. He stares at the paper a moment, then drops it into the fire. The flames burst for a heartbeat, glowing gold, lighting his face a fragile beauty, sad and fleeting, like a man saying goodbye to the last piece of his humanity. When the paper turns to ash, he bows his head and murmurs, "At least she's in a warmer place than me." You don't know what to say. In your mind, old memories flicker, family meals, your sister's laughter, the smell of fresh bread. But they fade in seconds, swept away by the wind. Here, even memory can't survive the cold. The night drips by like an open wound. Some begin to dream. A man slumps against your shoulder, his breath shallow, even, then still. You shake him gently, but he doesn't move. His body is still warm, but you know soon it won't be. You ease his hand to the ground, saying nothing. The others remain seated, eyes fixed on the fading coals. No one asks, no one weeps. The commander opens his eyes, scans the room once, and nods. By morning, the dead will be buried in the snow, the cemetery of nameless soldiers. The small flame is now just a faint glow in the ocean of night. You stretch out your hand, trying to grasp the last bit of warmth, but the fire shrinks back, retreats, then dies. Darkness floods in like a tide. For a moment, you hear everything, the wind slicing through the tent, your heartbeat slowing, and someone whispering, "Is it morning yet?" But no one answers. Here, the night has no end. You pull your coat tight, curl up, trying to keep your breath from freezing. Your eyes grow heavy, your mind drifting with the wind. In your dream, you see light, not the sun, but the old fire, warm, golden, soft, like a human touch. You reach for it, but before you can, a gust of cold sweeps through and erases it all. You open your eyes, only the pale grey of distant dawn remains. The night is over, but you don't know if that's something to be glad about. Because in this winter, every sunrise is just a reminder that you're still alive to keep suffering. You look into your comrade's eyes, hollow, sunken, empty like caves. Eyes that once burned beneath the sun of battle, once carried the fire of loyalty and the thirst for victory, now hold nothing. No more triumphs, no more ideals, only the instinct to survive. Their gazes no longer look forward, but drift aimlessly, as if searching for a place for their souls to rest before their bodies collapse. You see yourself reflected in them, someone walking without knowing why, only because stopping means dying. The wind whips through the camp, the tent fabric flapping like the laboured breaths of the exhausted. You turn your head, seeing frail bodies huddled around the dying fire, shoulders trembling not from fear but from cold. They no longer talk, no longer joke, no longer argue like they did in the early days of the march. Each man stays silent, leaning into another as if the last warmth inside them might pass between bodies. Across from you sits a soldier, his eyes hollow, rimmed with dark shadows, his skin pale to the point of transparency. He stares into the embers and whispers, "If I die, don't bury me too deep. I want to see the snow one more time." You don't reply, only nod faintly, but inside, you know that promise means nothing. By morning, you might be lying beside him, buried under the same cold snow, nameless. Far off, a horse snorts weakly. There spent 2 ribs visible beneath thick coats, legs shaking, unable to stand for long. The stable hand tries to pull a blanket over them, but the wind tears it away, knocking both to the ground. You want to help, but your body feels like stone, every joint stiff with frost. You watch the scene unfold in slow motion, like a dream without life. Cold creeps down your collar, slicing your skin. You pull your cloak tighter, but it's useless. The cold isn't outside anymore, it lives inside you now, eating slowly through your veins. Your hands are cracked and bleeding, the fingertips numb. Each time you clench them, blood seeps out. But you feel no pain, only dryness, only emptiness. Night deepens, and the wind changes tone, no longer hissing but growling. It carries a distant wail, echoing like the cries of the dead. You glance around, seeing a few soldiers flinch, eyes wide. One clasps his hands and prays, voice trembling so much no one can make out a word. You lower your head, closing your eyes not to pray, but to escape their gaze, because in it, you see something more terrifying than death. Emptiness. They no longer believe in orders, or victory, or any god. They believe in only one thing, that they must keep breathing, even if every breath feels like a wound. You remember the first days of war, the chants, the vows of loyalty, the burning eyes of courage. Now, all of it has vanished like smoke. War has ground down ideals, crushed bravery, and left behind walking shells of men. You exhale, your breath white like mist. A soldier beside you forces a crooked, weak smile. You still think we'll make it out alive? You look at him, silent. He nods, as if understanding. Both of you sit in quiet, watching the night swallow the last traces of light. Outside, snow falls heavier, each flake landing thick and fast, sounding like ashes dropping onto graves. Another soldier suddenly stands, staggering out of the tent. No one stops him. When he disappears behind the curtain of snow, you know he won't come back. Someone murmurs, "He's chosen." Chosen not to leave, but to end. In the camp, everyone understands. Sometimes, death is less frightening than living through one more night of this cold. You look at the small flame in the center, only a few glowing coals left, like the heart of something dying. You stretch your hand toward it, feeling the last bit of warmth, but it's not enough. You feel as though you're holding ashes, they crumble the moment you touch them. Beside you, the commander opens his eyes, voice rough and dull. "Tomorrow, we move." No one reacts. They only nod, by instinct, as if the right to refuse no longer exists. You raise your head toward him. His eyes are no different from the others, just deeper, emptier. His ideals died with the winter, but duty lives on, dragging him forward. You realize that in war, the strongest are not those who still believe, but those hard enough to live when belief is gone. That night, no one sleeps. They just sit silently, staring at one another in the fading light. No one speaks of home. No one mentions family. Those words belong to another life. When the wind finally stops, you lift your head and see the snow still falling steady and thick, covering everything in pure white. In that moment, you understand winter doesn't kill with cold. It kills with silence. It takes away every reason to keep going, until all that's left is the raw instinct to survive, rough, bare, and merciless enough to make you forget you were ever human. The trumpet sounds from afar, the tone blurs in the wind, distorted, stretched like a cry lost in the storm. You stop, lift your head, straining to listen. At first, you think it's just the wind whistling through the rocks, but then the sound comes again, deep, heavy, rhythmic. The enemy. They're out there too, somewhere in this same storm. The snow doesn't take sides, it kills both. You glance at the commander and see he's heard it as well. His face remains cold, but his eyes flicker with alertness. He signals for the troops to halt, and all movement freezes in an instant. The entire column stands still as stone. Only the wind howls and the snow scrapes across the ground. Everyone looks at one another, breaths turning into white smoke, eyes meeting but no words spoken. You feel your heartbeat slow, as if your body is waiting for a signal between life and death. The storm rages on, wind whipping the snow into white waves that erase the horizon. But through the haze, the trumpet sounds again clearer, closer. No mistake, they're advancing. You strain your eyes, trying to pierce the white curtain, but see only faint shadows shifting in the distance. They don't run, they don't stop, they move, steady and relentless, just like you. Two armies, both lost in an endless sea of snow, unseen yet sensing each other through ragged breaths and faint echoes of metal clashing far away. The wind shrieks through the spears, making a long, eerie hum like the ghostly strings of a battlefield's song. You tighten your frozen grip around your sword, hilt it feels like holding ice instead of steel. The soldier beside you trembles, unsure if from fear or from cold. He mutters, "Are we going to fight?" No one answers, no one knows. How do you fight in this white hell? No one can see faces, no one knows direction, there's no sky, no ground, only snow. And snow fights for no one. The trumpet falls silent. A strange pause descends, then a scream. No one knows whose. It rips through the frozen air like a blade. Then chaos. Metal on metal, horses screaming, men shouting. The battle begins without an order. You draw your sword and charge forward on instinct. Wind lashes your face, snow blinds your eyes. All you see are blurry shapes rushing toward you. Every swing, every thrust is blind, desperate. You don't know who you're striking, enemy or ally. Steel crashes against steel, but even that sound is swallowed by the storm. Everything becomes a symphony of madness, the clash of weapons, the cries, the crunch of snow underfoot, the wind roaring above. You strike down a figure lunging at you, feel your blade bite through flesh, hear a short scream. But when you look down, his face is covered in snow, and you can't tell which side he was on. You stumble back, gasping, lungs burning from the cold. Around you, shadows keep colliding, stabbing, falling, rising again. The storm doesn't stop. Wind slashes your cheeks, snow keeps falling, mixing with blood into streaks of deep red across the white ground. That red spreads, then disappears, buried beneath new snow. Death here is quick, clean, silent. No cries, no faces, only blurred motion, bodies collapsing wordlessly. Your arms feel heavy, your body numb, your breath broken. A shadow rushes at you, you raise your sword, steel meets steel, sparks flash. You lock blades, staring into his eyes, red, cloudy, reflecting your own face. In that instant, you both understand. Neither of you is the real enemy. The enemy is the cold devouring you both. He growls, swings. You counter, but both of you slip. The fall is hard, snow explodes upward. When you open your eyes, he's still half his face already frozen. You push yourself up, panting, looking around. There's no formation, no front line. Just scattered shadows, fallen bodies tangled together, one side indistinguishable from the other. The dead lie beside the living, and the living don't know when they'll join them. The wind howls louder, fiercer, as if cheering for both sides' defeat. You drop to your knees, sword slipping from your hand. Blood seeps down your fingers, freezing into your glove, but you feel nothing. There's only white. You look up, nothing but a silver-grey sky. No light, no hope. The trumpet sounds once more faint, broken, like the dying breath of a man fading away. Maybe it's a retreat signal. But who could retreat from this hell? The wind answers with a long wail, driving waves of snow across the field, slowly burying everything. You watch as bodies roll in the gusts, cloaks flapping, then settling still beneath the snow. There are no victors now, no losers. Only snow, the only thing that wins, the only thing that endures. You lift your head and let out a weak laugh, freezing on your lips, shattering like glass. The storm keeps roaring, carrying away your breath. And as the snow finally covers the battlefield, you realize war doesn't need men to kill. Winter has already done it. That night, the storm was strong enough to tear the tents apart. The wind screamed through every strip of fabric like 1,000 knives slicing through the air. You clutched your sword tightly, hearing the sound of canvas ripping like human skin being torn. Each time the wind struck, the entire tent shook, the wooden frame creaking, ready to snap. You gritted your teeth, crouched in the corner, trying to keep your breathing steady, but your heart pounded wildly, loud in your chest like a war drum. Cold, dry, and burning. The air inside the tent was thick, the damp scent of snow, the stench of animal hide, the metallic chill of steel. Everything mixed together into the breath of death itself. Outside, the storm roared as if the entire sky was collapsing. Each gust carried a shriek so eerie, it sounded like the cries of souls trapped in the snow. You felt your whole body slowly freezing. Your hand gripped the sword hilt so hard that the metal stuck to your skin. The stabbing pain reminded you that you were still alive. Beside you, the soldier sharing your tent was trying to hold down the flapping sheet, but the wind was too strong, it ripped the fabric wide open. A wave of snow burst in, cold as stone water poured straight into your chest. He shouted something, but his words were devoured by the wind. You lunged forward to help him secure it, but the ropes had snapped, the tent poles yanked out, flung away. Both of you fell, snow flooding over your faces, your necks sliding into your clothes. You coughed violently, trying to rise, but another gust hit stronger, tearing away what was left of your shelter. The tent collapsed, burying you under, the wet fabric pressed against your face, suffocating you. You pushed with all your strength, but the wind felt like a giant's hand pinning everything down. For a moment, you thought you would die not by war, but by snow and wind. A thunderclap cracked in the distance, a flash of light cutting through the storm, revealing figures struggling in the dark. Black silhouettes moved, stumbled, rose, then fell again. Voices called out to each other, but were lost, shredded by the gale. You crawled out from the wreckage, lifted your head, snow whipped against your face, stinging. Your eyes blurred, seeing only a blinding white. The soldier from before lay a few steps away, half buried in snow. You called out to him, but he didn't respond. You crawled closer, shook his shoulder, his body was stiff. The wind howled louder, as if determined to drown your voice completely. You wanted to scream, but your throat was dry, your mouth frozen shut. Every breath came heavy and broken. You forced your eyes open, the other tents were gone too, torn apart. The camp now nothing but chaos, shredded cloth, broken poles, fallen men. The last torches had been blown out, and darkness swallowed everything. Only lightning flickered far away, flashing over twisted shapes trapped in snow. You sank to your knees, using your sword as support. The blade plunged into the ice with a dry crack, joining the howling wind in its grim chorus. Amid the chaos, you heard something, a melody, faint, distant, like a song. At first you thought it was your mind breaking, but the sound grew clearer, trembling, sorrowful. Someone was singing in the storm. The voice was weak, shaking, but filled with a pain beyond words. You turned toward it, but the wind shoved you back. Each step forward felt like walking on stone. Snow reached your knees, dragging you down. You followed the sound. A flash of lightning revealed a lone figure sitting in the blizzard, cloak fluttering, head bowed, holding something, maybe a broken instrument, maybe just a shard of wood. The person was singing for the fallen, for the souls buried beneath the snow, for themselves. Each note fell into the wind like drops of blood melting into white. You stood still, listening. Strangely, amidst the howling storm, that voice calmed you. You felt the cold slow its crawl, your heartbeat ease. But then, another gust hit stronger, merciless. Snow struck your face, you shut your eyes, and when you opened them again, the figure was gone. Only shallow footprints remained, quickly erased. The wind laughed, the shrieking laughter of death itself. You collapsed, head bowed, clutching your sword, the only thing still tying you to the living world. Then you realized your hands were trembling not from cold, but from fear. A nameless, formless fear. Not of the enemy, but of winter itself. You understood then the storm didn't just want to tear down tents. It wanted to rip the human soul apart. You gripped your sword tighter, leaned your forehead against the hilt, closed your eyes, and let the snow fall. After a while, the wind softened, or maybe your ears had stopped hearing. You opened your eyes. It was still dark, but the storm had weakened. The camp was nothing but broken stakes, torn cloth fluttering, and still shapes covered in snow. You stood, staggering, your legs numb. The final gust passed light, cold, and silent. In your hand, the sword hung heavy, glazed white with ice. You raised it, staring at your reflection in the blade, pale, cracked, aged a decade. The storm had passed, but in the dim light that remained, you knew. What it had torn apart tonight wasn't just the tents, it was whatever humanity still lingered inside every soldier. The next morning the ground was covered with bodies. White snow blanketed everything, turning the entire camp into a silent graveyard. No one had been stabbed, no one had been cut. They had simply fallen asleep and never woken up. The faces were frozen, the eyes closed, with an eerie calmness, as if they had finally found what the living never could: absolute peace. You stood amidst it all, the wind brushing through your hair, so cold that you could no longer feel it. Beneath your boots, the snow was soft like powder, yet every step sank heavy. Because under it wasn't just earth, it was people. They lay mingled in the snow, row after row, dozens, then hundreds. Some still sat upright, backs against broken poles, heads bowed as if dozing off. Others lay face down, their hands clasped together, frozen in their final moment. There were no screams, no blood, no wounds, only bodies that had stopped breathing, from the cold, from hunger, or simply because their hearts could no longer fight through another night. You knelt, touching one man's shoulder. His skin was as hard as stone, his lips pale and thin as paper. When you let go, the snow on his shoulder slid off, revealing a faint layer of ice on his collar. You looked around. There was no sound but the wind. The army camp was nothing more than dark shapes lying quiet across a white sea. A young soldier stepped closer, his face stiff. He looked at the bodies and asked softly, "Are they all dead?" You didn't answer. You didn't have to. Death here didn't come suddenly. It came gently, like a breath, slow, tender, and then turned into perfect silence. A silence so deep it made you feel suffocated. The wind swept by, lifting a torn piece of cloth. On it was still the imprint of a hand, small, fragile. Someone had clung to it till the very end, holding on to the last trace of warmth. You looked toward the horses. Only a few remained alive. They stood still, heads bowed, their breath rising in faint white clouds. Their eyes were dull, almost human. The nearest one looked at you, saying nothing. You stepped closer, brushed its neck, felt the cold, dry skin. It didn't move. It felt like touching a living statue. In the distance, the commander stood alone, his cloak whipping in the wind. He said nothing, staring straight into the endless white ahead. At his feet, the dead were piled deep. You walked up, stopping a few paces behind him. "What do we do now, sir?" you asked. He didn't turn. His voice was hoarse, quiet, but clear enough to hear. "We continue." The answer almost made you laugh, but you couldn't. Continue. To where? For what? For whom? But then you understood. It wasn't faith in victory that kept him moving. It was the simple truth that stopping meant dying. The army was no longer an army, just walking shadows, pushed forward by the instinct to exist. You looked around, counting the survivors. Barely 40. Last night there had been over 100. Now, the spaces between tents were filled with makeshift graves of snow. No one dug holes, no one prayed. They just dragged the bodies outside, lined them neatly, and covered them with a thin layer of white. The sky was still grey, no sun, no warmth. You watched the snow fall over the dead, on their coats, on their eyes, making them look like they were sleeping in peace. Your throat tightened, but no tears came. Even grief had frozen here. An old soldier approached, holding a small badge, the only thing he'd taken from a fallen friend. He looked at it for a long time, then stuck it into the snow. "At least," he murmured, "he won't lose his way." You stood silently. The wind blew again, seeping into your collar, but you didn't shiver. The cold was already part of you, living in your blood, in your bones. Somewhere behind, someone coughed hard, then fell. Everyone heard it, but no one turned. Death had become ordinary, like a routine. Every morning, you counted how many still stood. Every night, you wondered who wouldn't rise again at dawn. A pale young soldier sat down beside you, his voice trembling. Do you think, maybe they're luckier than us? They don't have to keep walking. You were quiet for a while, then said, maybe. But the living don't have the right to envy the dead. He nodded, staring into the white distance, his eyes drifting. The wind blew harder, slapping your faces, forcing you both to bow your heads. The snow fell thick and heavy, like a curtain closing on what was left. The commander shouted, his voice cracked in the wind. Form up! We're leaving the camp! The order was faint, but it carried. The remaining men rose slowly, shoulders shaking, feet sinking deep into snow. They lined up, silent, without looking around, and began to walk. With each step past a body, they bowed their heads, not in farewell but to avoid looking too long. You did the same. You tightened your belt, pulled your hood close, and followed the line. Behind you, the wind rose again, sweeping through the camp, tossing away the last torn fabrics. Snow kept falling, heavier, faster. And within hours, everything left from the night before, men, horses, tents, ashes, was buried under the clean white of winter. You glanced back once, but there was nothing left to see. An entire army had vanished, leaving only a silent emptiness. You walked on, the wind screaming in your ears, and realized that in this winter, even death had grown gentle, because at least it gave people a reason to rest. The road to the fortress vanished beneath the snow. Every trace that once existed, wagon tracks, footprints, tree lines, markers, was gone, replaced by an endless white sheet that swallowed everything. No one knew if they were heading the right way or merely wandering in an infinite circle. But orders were orders. Move forward, at all costs. The commander ordered them to dig through the snow with bare hands. His voice was hoarse and dry, like the winter wind itself. If we don't clear the way, we die here, he said, his eyes burning with a strange light. Not faith, but the stubborn will to defy fate. The soldiers knelt silently and began to dig. Bare hands plunged into the ice-hard snow. The scraping sound, the clatter of nails against frozen ground, was chilling. Fingernails split and bled, droplets freezing as soon as they fell. But no one cried out, no one stopped. They just kept digging, layer after layer, as if something waited beneath. Food, warmth, or maybe just hope. The wind screamed, whipping snow into their faces, slicing every breath into shreds. A thin soldier, pale-faced, squinted and gave a dry laugh. Digging snow with bare hands, our ancestors never imagined their children would end up like this, no one replied. Because they all knew, if they stopped to speak, the cold would kill them before they could laugh again. Every scoop was its own battle, between man and nature, between will and despair. The hands, cracked and bleeding, slipped on the ice, but they didn't stop. You bent down, using your arms, your elbows, to shovel, the frozen snow soaking through your sleeves, seeping into your flesh. Your fingers went stiff, numb. Every time you cleared a patch, more snow tumbled down, filling it again, cruel, relentless, mocking your effort. A soldier in front suddenly shouted. Raising his hand, he had found a small patch of stone showing through the snow. Everyone rushed toward it, their eyes flickering with a spark of light. Not for the rock itself, but because it meant the road still existed somewhere beneath this deathly white. The commander stepped forward, laid his hand on the stone, touched it lightly, and nodded. "This is the road," he said, voice low. "Keep going, don't stop." The order rang out, and the line bent back down, digging again, pushing snow aside one by one, like blind machines running on fear. Each gust of wind forced them to stop, turn away, then resume. Sweat mixed with snow on their faces, freezing into pale crusts. Each man looked like a statue crawling across the land of the dead. You felt blood seeping from your fingers, trickling through the cracks of ice, darkening as it froze. The pain was no longer sharp, only numb, then burning, then empty. A soldier beside you collapsed, still clawing at the snow even as his body gave out. You reached to catch him, but he was already gone. His eyes remained open, staring straight ahead, at nothing but white. You pulled him aside and laid him down. The wind instantly covered him with a thin veil of snow, as if to hide another failure. "Don't stop!" the commander roared, his voice breaking through the storm but still strong enough to carry. "If you stop, you die." They bent again, swollen hands repeating the same hopeless motion. You could hear your own teeth chattering, but you didn't care. Dried blood crusted on your lips, the taste of salt mixing with cold. Someone behind began to sing. Not a battle song, but a folk tune, the voice weak, trembling. Yet somehow it made everyone dig harder, as if each verse was the beat of a drum. The wind stole the melody, scattering it into the storm, but it was enough to remind you that they were still human. After hours, the path slowly emerged, a narrow black streak cutting through the white. They looked at it, no cheers, no smiles, just eyes fixed on the dark line, because they all knew it was not an escape, but a way deeper into suffering. The commander stepped forward, raised his hand. "Move!" One word, sharp as a blade through silence. They marched again. No one looked back, no one spoke of those left behind. The wind still howled, the snow still fell, but the road was open. You followed the footprints ahead, glancing down at the specks of blood staining the ice. Theirs, yours, all mingled together, leading toward a place that might no longer exist. In that moment, you realized the most terrifying thing wasn't the cold or death, but the way humans could endure everything, and no longer know why. You kept walking, hand still gripping your sword, not to fight, but to remind yourself you were still alive. In the distance, the fortress was nowhere to be seen. Only snow, endless and pure, like a curse. Yet still, you walked on, with the few who remained. Figures that did not fall, did not stop, and no longer hoped. A young soldier asked you, "What are we fighting for?" The question came in the afternoon, when the army stopped to rest in an endless field of white with no end in sight. The cold wind blew, whipping snow against your face, stinging your skin. You looked up at him, a young face, eyes still holding a faint glimmer of hope, something everyone else seemed to have lost long ago. He waited for your answer, but you didn't know what to say. You opened your mouth, about to say, "For honor, for the homeland, for victory," but each word, as it reached your tongue, turned hollow. Those words used to mean something, but not anymore. Now, there was only survival. You looked down at your hands, the skin cracked, blood-stained, trembling slightly. The young soldier asked again, his voice rough in the wind, "If we die here, who will remember us?" You took a breath, your lungs aching from the frozen air. You didn't dare tell the truth that no one would, because here, where snow swallowed the sun, even death was forgotten. You stayed silent. Only the wind replied, whistling through the cracks of iron shields, sounding like the cold laughter of a war god. He looked at you, then smiled a weak smile, both bitter and brave. "Maybe we're fighting just to have a reason to keep breathing," he said. You didn't know whether to nod or shake your head. Sometimes, simple words like that cut deeper than any commander's speech. The wind howled on, carrying away everything the two of you said. In the distance, the marching line kept moving, heads bowed, their cloaks soaked with snow heavy as stone. Each man carried not just his weapon, but the weight of meaninglessness. You remembered the early days, when the campaign began. Back then, there was eagerness, singing, and laughter. The wind wasn't sharp enough to cut skin, and the snow wasn't deep enough to bury bodies. Everyone thought they were fighting for a noble cause. But now, after so many days, so many deaths, all ideals seemed buried with those who'd fallen. Only the survivors remained, not because they were brave, but because they hadn't died yet. You turned to look at the young soldier. He was cleaning his sword, hands trembling, lips turning blue. "Do you think we'll survive?" he asked. "I don't know," you said, your voice sounding like it belonged to someone else. "But we still have to walk, even if we don't know where to." He pressed his lips together and nodded. After a moment, he murmured, "I used to think war was where you became a hero." You looked at him for a long time, then said softly, "No. War is where people learn to forget they were ever human." He said nothing more. The two of you sat there, listening to the wind, the faint clink of chains as someone adjusted their armor. The sky darkened, the line between day and night fading into grey mist. Snow kept falling, steady and cold. A few soldiers quietly gathered dry wood, trying to start a fire, but the flames couldn't catch in the wind. They sat around it, watching the smoke rise and die, neither disappointed nor hopeful. The commander passed by, eyes sunken, voice low and hoarse. "We rest here tonight, march again at dawn." No one replied. His orders no longer sounded like commands, more like the whisper of routine. Everyone listened and obeyed, not out of belief, but because there was no other choice. You and the young soldier sat close when night fell. The wind whistled outside, slipping through the tent seams like a ghostly flute. He curled up, asking softly, "Do you ever dream of home?" You looked up at the darkness above, where snow still drifted silently. "Yes," you said, "but every time I wake, I feel farther away from it." He nodded, giving a faint smile. "I'm afraid that even if I survive, I won't recognize it anymore." You didn't answer. In your mind, the memory of home had faded. The small garden, the warm sunlight, the smell of bread, all felt like stories someone else had told, not your own. You realized that in this world, war didn't just kill people, it killed memories too. The wind grew stronger, shaking the tent. The young soldier leaned against you, whispering, "If I don't wake up tomorrow, will you bury me near the road? I want to rest somewhere people might pass by and remember someone was here." You nodded, unable to meet his eyes. A small promise between two lost souls in the heart of winter. That night was longer than any before. The wind never stopped. The snow never ceased. When morning came, you awoke, under a thick layer of frost. You turned to see the young soldier sitting as before, hand still clutching his sword, but his breath was gone. His face was calm, eyes closed, as if he'd found an answer you never would. You buried him by the old road, covering him with a thin layer of snow, placing his sword beside him. Then you stood there, for a long time. The wind blew again, whistling through the shields, and this time, it didn't sound like laughter. It sounded like a reply. A cold, endless reply that said in war, reasons don't matter. Only the wind remembers those who asked why. Saturday afternoon on the march, you hear the first cannon fire. The sound isn't like thunder, nor like the blast of flame. It's dry, sharp, and cold, as if someone had hurled the sky's fury straight into the frozen earth. The echo rolls through the valley, slamming into the cliffs and breaking apart into 1,000 shards of sound slicing through the wind. You flinch, lift your shield, knees bent slightly, eyes straining to find direction. But there's nothing to see. The snow falls so thick that the world ahead becomes a solid white wall, dense, shapeless, lightless. The cold seems to come alive, crawling through the cracks of your armor, slithering down your spine. You hear the commander shouting, but his voice is carried off by the storm, warped and distant, like someone speaking from inside a dream. Around you, the formation stirs, metal clinks against metal, boots stamp heavily on the ice. Everyone turns toward the sound, but no one sees the enemy. The wind rises, stronger, dragging the snow into a spiraling frenzy, like a swarm of spirits tearing each other apart. Another shell lands, closer this time. The ground shakes, snow explodes upward in a blinding burst of white. You cover your head, crouching low, breath uneven. Your ears ring, your heart pounds so hard you think it might break your ribs. The smell of gunpowder cuts through the air, acrid, heavy, mingling with the scent of sweat, melting ice and rusted steel. You realize the enemy is out there somewhere, hidden within the storm, firing into shadows perhaps just as blind as you. In this winter war, death doesn't need to look you in the eyes. It comes silently, cold and unseen. A soldier beside you falls. Without a sound, his body leans forward, then folds in on itself. You glance over, see blood spreading through his coat, deep red, quickly buried by snow. No one moves to pull him back, no cries, no names called. Everyone stays silent, because in this wind, words mean nothing. The cannons keep coming, each blast steady as the heartbeat of death itself. With every explosion, more snow falls thicker, heavier, covering what was just destroyed. The ground no longer distinguishes between blood, ice, or bodies. Everything blends into one pale, lifeless white. You bow your head, press yourself against a rock, holding your breath, but the wind finds its way through the seams of your armor, slicing like knives. From somewhere in the storm, a voice roars, "Counterattack!" You don't know who it is, but your legs move on their own, like under a spell. The whole line surges forward, dark figures swallowed by the white. You run, boots pounding against the ice, heart hammering. Each breath feels like swallowing blades, your throat dry and burning, but you keep going. Shapes flicker ahead, then vanish. You swing your sword, feel steel meet steel, hear the piercing ring. Sparks flash through the blizzard, glow for an instant, then disappear. You thrust, you slash, you don't know who you're fighting, or who's fighting you. Only reflex and fear guide your hands. A fierce gust tears through, snow whirling so violently it blinds you. Everything dissolves into chaos, screams, clashing metal, neighing horses, the roar of the storm. You fall, roll through the snow, your sword slipping away. When you look up, there's a man or a shadow, tall, broad, his face hidden, an axe in his hand. He shouts, but all you hear is wind. He swings. You dive aside, the blade slams into the ice, splintering it. You grab your sword, strike back. Steel clashes, the shock numbs your arm. You look into his eyes, no hatred there, only exhaustion and the raw instinct to survive, a mirror of your own. Another gust of wind blows through, and he's gone, swallowed by the snow. You stand still, gasping. Around you, shadows collide, fall, and fade. The battle has lost its shape. It's no longer men against men, but a melting blur of flesh and frost, life and death. The cannon fire fades, but the wind keeps howling, the snow keeps falling, as if war itself refuses to end. You move slowly across the field, seeing bodies scattered everywhere, half buried, half exposed, hands still gripping their weapons. No one can tell who was friend or foe. All wear the same cold shade of grey. You kneel, pick up a fallen sword, and plant it in the snow, a marker that someone fought here once, that something once mattered, however small. In the distance, the commander signals the retreat. You turn, looking up the mountain slope where smoke from the cannons still drifts across the sky. The sight is strange, almost beautiful, the beauty of utter destruction. The wind moans on, threading through iron shields, humming low like the song of the battlefield. You tighten your straps, draw a deep breath, and move forward again. Beneath the snow, the earth still trembles, like the heartbeat of a giant beast that refuses to die. You know this was only the prelude to something worse, and winter isn't finished yet. The battle unfolds in silence. No shouting, no drums urging the charge, no one screaming forward or don't retreat. Only the clash of steel against steel, shrill and cold. Heavy, ragged breaths blend into the howling wind, stretching like moans rising from beneath the earth. And the sound of snow collapsing beneath the feet of the dead, soft, gentle, yet more haunting than any explosion. The battlefield is drowned in white and blood. You grip your sword tight, hands trembling, you don't know if it's from fear or the cold. Your breath turns to smoke, vanishing the moment it leaves your lips. Everything before your eyes feels like a blood-soaked dream, where the line between man and monster has melted away. Friend and foe blur together, cloaks all the colour of snow, helmets frosted with ice. No one sees anyone clearly anymore. Men hurl themselves at each other by instinct, thrusting, slashing, slipping, falling. No one screams, no one calls a name, because no one has breath left to speak. Every exhale cuts through the air like a blade. You twist aside from a strike, feel the edge graze your armor, leaving a cold line down your ribs. You counter, your sword driving into your opponent's neck. Blood bursts out, dark red like wine, painting a streak across the white ground. He falls, silent. His eyes lock on yours, wide, until they slowly close. In that moment, you understand he was human too, just trying to live. But understanding comes too late. To your right, another soldier stumbles, crashing into you. Both of you fall, snow pouring into your clothes, biting cold. You push him off, but his eyes are open, staring a thin line of blood trails from his mouth. No breath left. You bow your head, gently close his eyes. There's no time for mourning. You rise again, lift your sword, and fight once more. Steel continues to scream through the storm. Sparks flash in the blizzard like falling stars in the night. The wind carries the thick scent of fresh blood, heavy, metallic, warm, mingling with the icy air into the unmistakable smell of war, a scent you know you'll never forget. In the distance, a horse screams sharp, brittle, then silence. A dark figure is thrown into the air, then falls, disappearing into the snow. Every motion on the battlefield slows, weighed down. There are no tactics, no formations left. Only individuals, lone souls trading breath for another heartbeat of existence. You glance left. A young soldier, his arm nearly severed, still grips his sword with the other hand. He gasps, his lips moving faintly, perhaps in prayer, but no words form. Then he lunges, stabbing his enemy in the chest. Both collapse, rolling, then lie still. Snow falls again, softly, covering them, two nameless mounds of white. You want to stop. You want to scream, but your throat burns dry, your voice frozen somewhere deep inside. Your vision blurs. You can't tell if it's tears or snow. The wind sweeps across, carrying a long, mournful sound. You think it's a voice, but it isn't. Just the wind whispering through the cracks of armor, singing death's hollow tune. Every step you take sinks deep into the snow. Beneath it, you feel something soft and heavy bodies. You walk over them without looking down, because if you look, you'll see your own face reflected there. A shadow lunges. You react by instinct, swinging upward. Metal meets metal and breaks. Your blade shatters. The impact numbs your arm. The enemy falls, and you drop to your knees. The two of you stare at each other in silence. He reaches for his knife, then stops, exhales. His eyes glaze over. You sit there, heart racing, bare hands pressed to the snow, too cold to feel anything. The wind tears through your hair, lifting the crusted frost from your armor. In the distance, the final cannon sounds slow, deep like the last note of a song running out of breath. Then silence. The entire battlefield freezes. No swords, no voices. Only wind and falling snow, soft as a lullaby. You rise, look around. Everything has stopped. Those still alive lie prone, barely breathing. The ground is layered with bodies, piled like shadows in a frozen dream. Each gust of wind adds a fresh blanket, folding them into the land itself. You look down at your hands, trembling, blood dried between your fingers, ice cold. You no longer know who you are, what you're fighting for, or why. Only that you're still breathing, and in this silence, that breath sounds terrifyingly loud. Far away, you see the silhouette of the commander standing still, unmoving, his cloak swaying faintly in the wind. You can't tell if he's alive or has died on his feet. The pale sun slips weakly through the clouds, its silver light reflecting on the ice. The world looks drained of blood, left only in shades of white and grey. You walk among them, slow, quiet steps. No cheers, no victory cries, no hands clasped on shoulders. The battle is over, but no one has won. You stop, glance back. The valley lies still as a grave. Snow keeps falling, slowly burying your footprints, and you realize when the sun sets, there will be no trace left that anyone was ever here. Only silence eternal, cold, and endless. When night falls, you realize victory means nothing. The last light of the day fades on the horizon, giving way to a darkness so heavy it feels like snow pressing down on your soul. The storm has passed, the clash of steel has gone silent, but the battlefield remains, vast, white, cold, and full of bodies lying still. You walk among them, your boots sinking deep into the snow, your footsteps swallowed by silence as if the world itself has stopped breathing. The victors and the fallen now rest beneath the same sheet of ice. No more titles, no more flags, no more oaths. Only faces frozen forever in the final moment of fear. You bend down, pick up a broken sword, its blade cracked, smeared with dried blood. There's no mark of allegiance left on it, only lifeless steel, a weapon that has killed so many it seems even it has grown weary. You grip the hilt, feel your skin stick to the frost, sting sharply, then let go. In the darkness, the ground glimmers faintly in the moonlight. It looks like a mirror, a vast reflection of the world's death. Every mound of ice rises like an unfinished story, a dream that never woke. You realize you've forgotten what warmth feels like, forgotten why this journey ever began. The only thing left in your mind are the faces of those who fell comrades. Enemies all turned to dust within the same winter's lullaby. You walk among them, pausing with every familiar face. Someone who once laughed with you by the fire, someone who once sang on the march, someone who once promised to come home. Now, they all lie still, their expressions strangely peaceful, as if death were the only sleep winter allows. You lift your gaze to the sky. There are no stars, only a pale, sickly moon, so faint you can't tell if it shines or merely reflects the snow's white glow. The wind passes, carrying a faint sound, maybe a voice calling, or maybe just the echo of the past refusing to fade. In the distance, the commander's silhouette emerges. He stands among the ruins, silent, staring at the horizon. You approach and stop a few steps behind him. His cloak is torn, his hand still clutching a sword, his head bowed. In that silence, you hear his voice weak but clear. "We've won." You glance around, then back at him. The words echo across a field of corpses, cold wind and darkness hollow, bitter. Won? You can't imagine anyone still alive believing that word. "It would have been better if no one had won," you murmur, unsure if he hears you. He doesn't answer. The wind rises, his cloak whipping, and then he turns away, walking off. His figure fades into the snow. You watch, but don't follow. Inside you, something opens, an emptiness growing wider. Not fear, not despair, but the clear understanding that none of this means anything. You sit down, your back against a frozen stone. Before you lies an enemy soldier, still gripping his weapon. You look at him for a long time, then pull the last piece of hard bread from your pouch and place it on his chest. "If there's another world," you whisper, "I hope it has no winter." Snow begins to fall again, lighter, softer, like a gentle hand covering everything. Darkness spreads, blurring the line between the living and the dead. You close your eyes, listening to the wind slide through the cracks in your armor, a lullaby from somewhere far away. Memories come rushing back. Laughter, music, sunlight, the smell of fresh bread in a warm kitchen. They feel so distant now, you're not sure they ever truly existed. Everything before you is white, the white of snow, of flesh gone still, of memories erased. You wonder if you'll ever return, and if you do, whether you'll still be human. In the quiet, a crow flies overhead, caws softly, then vanishes into the dark. You follow it with your eyes, and suddenly understand only those who can fly will escape this winter. The rest of you, all who ever held a sword here, will remain buried in snow, alive or dead. You rise, your legs heavy as stone. In the distance, the wind lifts a torn piece of cloth, what's left of a flag. It twists, floats, then falls, swallowed by the snow. Victory and defeat blur together, like blood dissolving in frozen water. You walk slowly toward the slope leading out of the valley. With each step, the snow crunches beneath your boots, steady, cold, final. No one calls out, no one bids farewell. Only the wind brushes past, light as the breath of someone long asleep. When you look back, the battlefield is already covered, smooth and untouched, as if no battle ever took place. You know that when the sun rises, no one will remember the names of those who fell here. And in that moment, you understand winter doesn't care who wins. It only waits. And in the end, it is always the last to survive. You lift your head and look at the sky. The night above is painted in shades of silver grey, eerily still. Snowflakes fall slowly, spinning gently through the air, light as breath, soft as memory. They settle on your shoulders, melt, then freeze again, forming a thin, misty sheen over your cloak. In that moment, the world seems to stop. No more steel, no more howling wind, no trace of the battle just ended. Only snow, falling endlessly, as if the sky itself is burying all of humanity's sins beneath its eternal white. You raise your face, letting the flakes land on your skin, cold but tender. They gather on your hair, your helmet, on the still bodies lying beneath. They look peaceful now, no longer soldiers, no longer enemies, just shapes kept by winter. You look around, the vastness feels like a still life painting of death. In the distance, the shadows of the living move slowly, silently. No one speaks, no one cries, no one shouts of victory. Only absolute silence so deep you can hear the snow landing on the dead, soft as their final breaths. You kneel, touch the ground. It's cold, hard, smooth as marble. Beneath this layer of snow, how many souls lie hidden? How many promises, dreams, hatreds? No one knows. All erased, leaving behind only the cruel purity of snow. You whisper, your voice carried away by the chill. Maybe winter is absolving us. The words vanish as soon as they leave your lips. No one hears them, but you know they're true. Because nothing in this world is as fair as snow. It doesn't care who was the hero or the killer. It takes no side, keeps no record of victories, shows no mercy. It covers all the winners, the fallen, the living, the dead beneath one perfect white shroud. And you understand, winter stands with no one. It simply exists quiet and eternal, like the final truth of the world. You rise and look into the distance. The sun doesn't rise, but a dim light filters through the grey clouds, forming a faint glow along the horizon. That light trembles, fragile, yet enough to cast your shadow long across the snow. A small, dark figure adrift in a sea of white. You smile the first in many days, not from joy, but from acceptance. You finally realize there's nothing left to hold on to. Humans like to think they control fate, that war is born of will, that victory is earned by effort. But here, in this winter, all of that has been swallowed whole. Nature needs no reason to be cruel, no purpose to forgive. It simply does what it always does, it erases. Behind you, the wind sweeps over the fallen, tugging at cloaks, lifting scraps of torn flags. They rise briefly, then fall, swallowed by snow. You walk on, each step leaving a deep print that's quickly covered. It feels like walking through a world erasing itself. No more paths, no more directions. Every way is the same. Every falling flake hides what came before. You think about the things you've done, the lives you've taken, the faces you've forgotten, the screams you once tried not to hear. But now, there's nothing left to repent for. Even guilt dissolves here, like everything else. Maybe that's the punishment, not to be remembered, but to be forgotten completely. The wind shifts, blowing back toward you. The smell of blood fades, replaced by the scent of frozen air. Clean, indifferent, terrifyingly pure. You inhale deeply. Your lungs ache, but for a moment, you feel cleansed. Not by gods, but by winter itself. A forgiveness born not of mercy, but of indifference. Far away, you see another soldier still alive, limping through the snow. He doesn't look at you, nor at anything. He just walks slowly, aimlessly. You know he understands what you do. In winter, man is no longer warrior or killer. He's only a small creature trying to exist beneath a sky that couldn't care less. You keep walking, toward the faint shimmer of light ahead. With every step, the snow falls heavier, thicker. It clings to your hair, your cloak, your skin. You don't brush it away. You let it cover you. As part of this winter, a white shroud burying every memory, every sin, every victory, every loss. In the distance, the sky changes, hue not quite bright, not quite dark. A blur between two worlds. You stop, lift your head, look up. The snow still falls, quietly, endlessly. You whisper, as if speaking to the world itself. Winter has won. Then you smile and walk on, leaving a single trail of footprints behind. The wind blows, snow falls, and within minutes, even that footprint disappears, as if you never existed at all. Only the snow remains, only silence, and winter still falling, still white, still belonging to no one. If you're still here, it means your heart is beating in rhythm with the stories of the night. Hit subscribe and join me on the next journey, where every shadow hides a secret waiting to be awakened. And now, turn down the lights, let your mind drift, and let sleep take you away. Sleep well, because tonight, the world is still whispering.